Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for listening to the Bold Moves podcast. I am Mandy Mucci, and I am the host. That means I am the lucky person who gets to talk with people who have done crazy things outside of their comfort zones that have impacted their lives and the lives of others profoundly and positive. And today is no exception. I don't think there has been a podcast episode so far where my mouth has just hung open in shock as much as today's. So if you're watching the video version, please be kind and don't laugh at the facial expressions. But I spoke with Brian Dickinson, who has a really crazy story. His quest right now, which some might say finished with, some might say still working on, is called the 7 Summits, which is climbing to the very top of the highest mountain on all 7 continents. He's been close to the top on the one closest to him here in the United States, but that's the only one that he hasn't completely summited, and he has some pretty insane stories that go along with that. So please stay tuned and ready to be inspired and shocked by Brian Dickinson.
All right. Hello, everybody. Happy Monday. Welcome to the Bold Moves podcast. Today, I am chatting with Brian Dickinson, who has definitely done some bold moves. Welcome to the show, Brian.
Hey, how's it going? Thanks for having me.
Fantastic. Thank you. So obviously, you know the name of the show. Why don't you share why you think I asked you to come on to the podcast?
I guess I've had quite an experience, being able to climb the highest peaks, on each of the continents, and had a pretty major survival situation on Mount Everest. So I'm guessing that could be intriguing to some of your listeners.
I'm guessing so too. So when you're saying the highest peaks on each of the continents, can you go into a little bit more detail on that first?
Yeah, sure. So there's something called the 7 Summits, which is the highest peak on each continent. And back in, I think, 2008, I decided I was going to do that. Not many people had done it.
Okay.
And it's, as far as my life, I'm a pretty adventurous person and pretty driven. So, living in the Pacific Northwest, there's no shortage of mountains, but I just wanted to up my game a little bit and, in the process, just be able to travel the world and just do something that most people haven't nor will ever do. And just each continent, is just so different, and each peak is so different. You have to train just so differently for it, and the logistics are insane. So it's been, quite an adventure.
I can only imagine. I was just thinking yesterday that I have had somebody on my podcast from 6 of the 7 continents, but Antarctica has not been represented, but maybe you can take care of that for me. Even though you're from the Pacific Northwest, I doubt that many of my guests have ever been to Antarctica. So what are those 7 summits?
So the tallest is obviously Mount Everest, which is the highest peak in Asia. It's in Nepal, borders Nepal and Tibet. In Africa, it's Kilimanjaro.
Okay.
In North America, it's Denali. And interestingly enough, the closest one to me, Denali.
Yeah.
I've been on it 3 times, snowboarded it once, but I've never stood on top. So to officially complete the 7 summits, I still have to go back and just kind of reached a point, hitting it, 3 different times. It's a brutal mountain. You can only climb it, if the weather's good. And, most times I got pushed back based on weather, pinned down at high camp, got within 1,000 feet from the top and had to turn back.
Oh my goodness.
But it's one of those things where, in life, sometimes you can just keep hammering towards a goal, and you have to just come to that realization that it is a goal, and it's, it's an interesting one, but again, it's not my life. Like, if I have to be fulfilled with not fulfilling the entire goal, if that's the plan that's put in place for me. So it's about just making calculated risks and good decisions. So that's where I'm at with that one. So in Europe, the highest peak is in Russia. It's called Mount Elbrus.
Okay.
And it's right on the southern border near Georgia. So it's really sketchy getting down there. We had to bribe people to get further up the mountain. because
Okay.
it's very corrupt. It's really interesting. I had my wife with me and a friend as well, so that was even more scary.
Okay.
But
So
stood on top
more
of
from like a political, social aspect than necessarily the mountain itself.
Yeah, the mountain itself, it's 18,500 feet, so it's up there,
Yeah.
but it's not overly technical.
Okay.
It was just beautiful being down there in the Caucasus Range and near the Black Sea and everything. Just a part of the world that I would never go unless I had this, audacious goal.
Sure.
And then having my wife there was super cool too. And then let's see, what other continents? Down in Australia, it's Kosciuszko.
Okay.
It's like a 7,000 foot peak, so it's not overly huge. But it's so unique down there. It's between Sydney and Melbourne.
Okay.
And it's just kind of out in the middle of nowhere. But I had my wife and my 2 kids do that one with me.
Okay.
So that was awesome just to have them up there. And my kids, they're now 10 and 13, but this was like 3 or 4 years ago. So they're little guys and girls, one of each. So that was really a special moment for me, just because that was one of the last ones that I was attempting. And then down in South America, it's Aconcagua. It's in Argentina. So that was just under 23,000 feet. So I ended up soloing that one, and then had my wife and kids down after. And so during these climbs, I always visit orphanages.
Okay.
So I always, check the logistics prior, find an orphanage, and then do like a toy drive and go visit, just to kind of show a little bit of love. It's such a small thing, but it's something. So I actually had my kids and my wife do that. So that was really special as well.
Oh, that sounds wonderful.
Yeah. And then I lost count, but I think we're down to Antarctica.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's Vincent Massif. So that's a 16,000 foot peak, and Antarctica is just amazing. Just it's like being on the moon. Wow. No one's down there because they just ended up in Antarctica. I mean, you're there for a purpose.
You don't accidentally stop there. Or stay there if you're born there and don't like cold. Or
yeah, I'd be curious how many people are actually born there.
Right.
But just getting there logistically, it's really it's complex. I went down to the southern tip of Chile, and then the snow was so bad because you basically take a pretty long flight from the southern tip of South America over to Antarctica, and you land on this massive glacier on this huge Russian Ilyushin airplane, one of those planes where the nose opens up and you can drive like tanks and different things in it. I mean, it's huge. But it's one of those things where if you can't land because of conditions, you have to just full throttle, take back off, and head back to Chile. So it's crazy. But it was so snowy that I was stuck in Chile for a week by myself. So I just rented a car and went up to Patagonia and the Torres del Paine and did some climbing up there by myself. Slept in my car, and yeah, it's just kind of one of those moments just to make the best out of it. But in Antarctica, it's just it's amazing. It's like I think I mentioned, being on the moon. I mean, it's so pristine, so clean, and there's just not many people there. So being that high up, the highest peak there, one of the least climbed mountains in the world for sure. Just amazing, and to be the first ones to summit that year. It was certainly cold. It was -70.
Oh my gosh.
It was a little chilly, and I had removed my gloves for just a second to get something for my pack as we're climbing. And carabiners, which are the climbing devices that are attached to my harness, they're made of metal or aluminum. Right. I touched it for just a brief second, and it was like touching a hot stove, just like just fried my fingertips, where I didn't actually feel my fingertips for about 2 months.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was definitely cold, definitely an experience, but just something that I can always go back to that moment, and just have that memory. It's really cool.
I believe it. So when it's that cold, because I'm from Wisconsin originally, and I've been outside in like -40 when they've had those polar vortexes, they were called, and that was terrible, like walking to my car. I imagine that climbing the tallest mountain in Antarctica is a little bit longer of a time period than like a 20-yard walk to a car. How do you do, I'm sure it was like about 10 minutes. No. How do you balance like the physical exertion of, I'm sure the difficulty from climbing causes you to perspire, or at least your body to warm up a little bit perhaps, or does that just not happen because it's so insanely cold and you just kind of shiver your way up? How does that work with doing something physical for a long period of time in such extreme weather? And I'm sure that's happening near the tops of other mountains as well, right?
So every mountain is totally different, and you have to take into consideration like wind chill. Like if there's no wind, it's amazing. Like on Everest, it could go from in the negatives to 80 degrees with a snap of the fingers, because once a cloud cover comes over, it can be really cold. You may get some, it may be breezy, but once the cloud cover moves and I'm in a full down suit and everything, it's the sun banks off the snow and ice.
Yeah.
Fries you, so you're constantly, like you're saying, you don't want to perspire because you can get hypothermic, because
right.
When it's fluctuating so much, you just have to be super aware of your own body. A lot of people ask me recommendations on clothing and how to regulate their body, and I have to flip it back to them because they know themselves, or they should get to know themselves better than I could ever do, because I may not sweat as much as the next person, but you have to be really aware of that, because you may be comfortable as you leave camp, the safety of your tent that's anchored down, and now you're completely exposed because you're getting in these environments where it is windy and it's cold, and you want to keep moving. If you keep moving, you're going to stay warm, but you don't want to move too fast, because one, you're going to get too tired, not be able to continue, so you have to kind of do the whole marathon approach.
Sure.
Not go out sprinting, but even more importantly is you have to regulate your body temperatures. And if you're with a team of climbers, you have to understand where they're at as well. Because if I'm moving fast and pushing other people and they're sweating to death behind me, you got to stop and maybe strip down layers, or just ventilate. A lot of the clothing that we have zippers to ventilate. And just really be aware of that. On the peak in Antarctica, I mean, it was just cold. I mean, you could not have anything exposed whatsoever. And I have a full down suit. It's like wearing a down sleeping bag. It's really nice, but you can get warm inside of that. I don't remember sweating on the Massif, but we were moving really slow because it's a high peak, and we were up there for a week and a half, acclimatizing, and for the actual summit push, it was just with mountaineering, it's really slow. It's just one low step in front of the other.
Wow. So I imagine that obviously it takes physical strength to climb these mountains, especially I was going to ask about the slope of them, because my climbing experience is indoor walls. I did one in Colorado that was like a guided belay thing where I was helped up basically. And I've seen a documentary on Yosemite and the guys, like how that progressed to like the free climbing. But I've also done hiking. And so how much of it is like going straight up, and how much of it is, kind of hiking up as opposed to like a wall?
Yeah, it depends on the different mountains and the routes that you take on those mountains.
Sure.
That's, I think, one of the appeals of mountaineering to me is that it is a mix of just trekking. Like even on Everest, it's just to get to base camp, it's 38 miles on foot. No motorized vehicles, just takes a week and a half just to get to base camp, which is at 17,500 feet. So there's that, but then you get on the mountain and it's the Khumbu Ice Fall, so it's this river of falling ice, building-sized blocks of ice. So the route's different. You're climbing across aluminum ladders over crevasses, and then way up higher on the mountain, past Camp 2 is Lhotse Face. Lhotse is the fourth highest mountain in the world, and that's just a straight-up ice climb, ice rock, snow for a few miles until you actually get to high camp. Camp 3 is actually cut into a shelf halfway up.
Okay.
You get to high camp, And then from high camp up to the summit, it's a total mix. There's rock climbing, there's ice, there's normal just walking in snow, in certain areas.
Sure.
So that's a total mix. Something like Yosemite, Half Dome, and El Capitan. Those are a little different. I mean, that's pure rock climbing.
Okay. I thought that there was a difference, and I just wanted to make sure I wasn't making that up.
Yeah, a lot of the techniques and how you anchor in is very similar.
Okay.
So you'll see a lot of people that do both.
Right.
And it is good to do both, because then you get the skills and the confidence to actually go after something bigger if that's your goal. A lot of people are happy with indoor climbing gyms in Colorado.
Sure.
And that's great too.
Yeah. So I assume that you very meticulously plan the routes that you're taking up, but at the same time, you mentioned having the diverse skills. Is that so you're ready for anything? Have you had to divert from the route plan that you've set out and go a different way that was a little, more going into the unknown than I'm guessing meticulous planning you did beforehand?
Yeah. With climbing, you can only plan for things that are within your control.
Right. And
yes. Yeah. I mean, there are a lot of similarities. I do public speaking, and I can just tell my story on Everest, and it applies to normal people's situations. It's pretty extreme, but everything's extreme to the individual, whatever they're going through.
Sure.
But it really comes down to that. Comes down to a couple different things. But what we're talking about here is it's really you plan physically, emotionally, spiritually to be on that mountain, to be there for forever, for a couple months, being away from family, being away from normal life. We all have our busy lives, normal lives, and then you're plucked from that, and now you're there's a ton of downtime on the mountain. There's a lot of things that can occur, but what you don't want is to get into trouble higher up on the mountain, or not be able to help someone else who's in trouble because you didn't plan accordingly.
Sure.
So you want to be super strong. You don't want to think you're going to get in shape while on the mountain.
Right.
You want to do stuff prior. You want to be technically strong. Get those skills. And it is tough because nothing compares to being in the death zone, being up where there's just only a third of the air that there is down at sea level. But
that's what the death zone is it's an air thing, not I mean, I guess if you fall, you die, that would be a large portion of the mountain.
Yeah, but there's lots of areas like that in the world. Fall off a bridge.
True.
So death zone is considered 26,000 feet and above. So anything above 26,000 feet, because there's only a third of the air up there. So you can't survive. Like if you were to pluck your body from where you're out there in Mountain View and put you on the summit of Everest, you would just pass out and die. Wow. So you have to actually acclimate. That's why it takes so long to climb these mountains, because you're climbing up, then back down. So you go up, a mile or two, to, come back down to base camp. And what that does is it forces your body to survive at higher elevations. What it's doing is it's forcing your body to create more red blood cells, which carry oxygen. Okay. So it's a timely process. It's amazing though, because when you're done climbing Everest, I mean, you're as acclimated as you can be. Like if you're in an airplane and the little oxygen things come out because they've lost cabin pressure, you wouldn't have to put them on. You'd be the only one surviving.
Wow. That's incredible. It's interesting because I was going to ask you a bit ago, and I got sidetracked with my Yosemite comparison question, but I imagine that, of course, you just explained the death zone and why you would need to, I'm sure do breathing exercises as well. But I was wondering too, with the temperature regulation, if you do anything like mindset work or breathing exercises to even just try to calm your body down. Like I am a pretty active person and I'm into fitness, and there are some workouts that I get exertion headaches from. And so I have to really pay attention to my body and calm it down sometimes pretty quickly so that I don't ruin the whole rest of my day by my workout because I worked out too hard and have a headache. So I imagine that, of course, especially I didn't even think about the elevation changing the oxygen levels. Like, do you have to do anything like that, and how do you prepare that way?
I think each each person that's in the sport would probably have a different way because our bodies are so different.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of it can actually, you're raising your heart rate a lot because it's really hard to breathe up there.
Right.
23,000 feet, the majority of people use supplemental oxygen, which it's not like scuba diving where it's 100% compressed air, because if you came off that, you would, again, just die. So it mixes with the outside world, air, and just kind of helps a little bit, but it's also
a boost.
Yeah, I mean, it basically kind of lowers you down a couple thousand feet.
Okay.
That makes sense, but you're carrying the extra heavy oxygen bottle, so it's probably a balance. But there's a lot of areas where you may panic. People tend to panic in situations because you're really exposed up there. The conditions are just insane, and if you panic, there's nowhere to run.
Sure.
And when I was in the military, I was combat search and rescue, helicopter rescue swimmer, and one of the things they taught us is, panic kills. If you're jumping out of a helicopter to rescue someone else who just ejected out of a F-18, they're panicking, they see you as flotation, they're trying to pull you under. If you're panicking, both of you guys are going to die. You have to really get through those panicky situations, gain control, calm the other person down, get them up in the helicopter, rescue them, that type of thing.
Sure.
So I think I've had a little more training than probably the average, which definitely helps. But it's a normal reaction to have those moments where your body wants to, panic, and it could be from exertion, it could be from, going across an area that you look down and it's a 2-mile drop down on the other side of Tibet. It's just that exposure and everything. Sure. So I think in those moments, for me, it's kind of like you're saying. It's just you have to just stop and just breathe, and then open your eyes and just keep moving. Just get through it. Just calm yourself down. And I guess it's kind of suppressing it, which can come out later. But in those moments, you kind of have to be fearless in the moment.
One of my favorite questions to ask on the podcast is, what's the scariest thing you've ever done? And then when you're scared, how do you push through? And I think this is going to tie back to the Everest story that you've alluded to. So are you up for sharing that one?
I guess.
Are you ready to relive probably the scariest days of your life?
I relive it every day.
All right, let's hear it.
Talk a lot about it. Yeah. So definitely the scariest and just most pivotal moment in my life was May 15th, 2011. So I climbed Everest independently, so I wasn't part of a large group. I had a climbing Sherpa, a song, and we're good friends. And basically, we're in a position to go for the summit on the night of May 14th, 2011.
Okay.
And how it works on Everest is you climb through the night because everything is, it's night, it's cold. Things become very unstable once the sun comes up. So the goal is you get to the summit as the sun is rising, and then you start heading back down.
Okay. So, and when you say things become unstable, is that like an ice situation? Is that just weather in general?
Yeah. So the sun warms things up.
Okay.
So like the anchors that we're attached to, so there's fixed ropes attached to anchors, usually made of metal. Okay. Once the sun hits that, it becomes a conductor of heat, so it can become loose. Avalanches, the ground, everything becomes unstable. So the gear that I have as a climber is like crampons, which are the spikes on my boots.
Okay.
So they're made for ice and, ice axes and everything else. So we went through the night, and at 28,000 feet, 1,000 feet below the summit, he just wasn't feeling it. He wasn't feeling good at all. So we had a conversation. He was going to wait not too far below. And, I was going to continue up. The weather was good. I was feeling strong. He was feeling okay to wait there. So we just had that conversation, and you live and die by decisions you make on the mountain, but you're up there, you're in the death zone, and that's where we went. He ended up going all the way back down to a high camp. I didn't realize at the time, but that was fine because it's all survival up there.
Sure.
So I was the only person going for the summit from either side. Typically on Everest, you come from the north, which is out of Tibet, or the south, which is out of Nepal.
Okay.
And because there's only a couple weather windows per year, the people that are climbing are usually in a position to go for the summit. So it's very unusual for me to have it to myself.
Okay.
So, but didn't overthink it or even really think much about it. Just continued up. I solo lots of mountains. I train by myself. I'm very comfortable in that situation. So it wasn't like a major thing, but it was Everest. I mean, this is the tallest mountain in the world. Got to the top as the sun, just after the sun rose, and just, an amazing experience just to be up there, take the highest selfie in the world, and just to know that I was the highest person in the world at that moment. And it's a lot to process. It's something that I think any climber will process the rest of their life, because you have such a short time up there. Yeah. And I made a radio call down, let them know that I was there, and also let them know that Pasong had went down. I was completely alone.
Yeah.
And put my radio back and, got a little snack and started heading down. And within seconds, everything just went completely white. And what had happened is the day prior, I'd cracked my goggles, and I have blue eyes. I'm very susceptible, but I ripped an internal lens out of the goggles, and because it basically cut their effectiveness in half as soon as the sun came up, banked off the ice up there in the death zone where there's only a third of the air, a third of the ozone. It fried my cornea, and I went snowblind. So I remember just dropping down to a knee, grabbing the rope that I was attached to, and just really assessing the situation. I was at the highest point in the world, completely alone, and I was blind. So without overthinking it, I got up and started moving. I just started inching my way down, just very deliberate steps, trying not to pierce my leg with my crampons and follow that rope. And there's anchor points I had to get through. And, I tried so hard. I'm not normally blind. I tried so hard to use my eyes.
Yeah.
And with snow blindness, it's like if you put a light bulb within an inch of your face. Like, it's so bright white, you can't see anything.
Sure.
You put your finger in front of that light bulb, and you'd know something just moved, but you can't focus on it.
Okay.
So it's really bright, and it just feels like, I always describe it as if you got like potato chips and put them in your eyelids.
I was going to ask if there was pain as well.
Yeah. It's just that scratching continually. You realize how often your eyes are actually moving, and it's just really, really painful.
Oh.
And I just kept moving. And I had to get down the first obstacle, which is Hillary Step. It's a 40-foot rock climb.
Okay.
And it was basically just pendulum down, kind of slammed against the rocks, and just laid there and just kind of assessed, making sure I didn't break anything.
Yeah.
Because I have crampons, the spikes on my boots on rock, it's really, really hard. It's not sticking, it's kind of slipping and sparking. But the next section is this area that's about 2 feet wide, and it is a 2-mile drop on each side. On the right, going down, is into Nepal, left into Tibet.
So it's basically like a ladder with no rungs.
Yeah, I guess.
Like, as far as the space you have for accuracy. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's a good way to describe it. And just knowing that, just taking small steps. And at this point, there was 50-mile-an-hour winds. So I could hear these gusts come up and over the ridge, and I would just hunker down to lower my center of mass. It'd go over me, and I'd get up and take another step. And this whole time, it was taken a long time.
I was going to ask how much longer it took than what you had scheduled it to be if you had been able to see.
Yeah, everything took a long time. But this whole time, I felt this presence around me. I couldn't see anything, but I just didn't feel alone.
Okay.
I didn't think too much about that. I kept moving. And to answer your question, it usually takes 24 hours to regain your eyesight from snow blindness. Okay. I didn't regain mine for a month and a half. Oh, wow. And it should have taken me 3 hours to get down to high camp. It took me 7.
That's so amazing. That's only a little over double to do something very dangerous without the ability to see.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I just kept moving, got to the south summit, took a major fall, and just fell head over heels. It was that that moment right there was probably the scariest thing I've ever had happen, because it would have been over a mile straight down if wasn't attached to the rope.
Okay.
And just that helplessness of just falling and not being able to see. And then the rope shock loading, basically stopping my fall. And I was just upside down, arched, my oxygen bottle coming out, ripped from my face. I couldn't breathe. And I had to right myself. But in the thin
air. And also
air,
you have spikes on your feet that could have cut your rope or stabbed you or, okay. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
And my heart's just ripping out of my chest. I had to really, to our points earlier, stop and just calm myself. And then had to kind of side traverse over, and a slab avalanche kicked off because it was warming up. And that's basically where a sheet of the snow and ice that I was standing on just came out from under my feet. And I remember as soon as that happened, I grabbed the rope and it cut a line right through my glove because I was moving so fast, but I stopped myself.
Okay.
And again, my heart's just ripping out of my chest. Slow down, breathe. Got to this area called the South Rock Step, which is a rock climb, just kind of slid down that. And then as I am moving on this ridge, it's so bright white and so painful with my eyes, I almost walked right past an extra oxygen bottle that Pasong had left. And it was like this bright orange orb there. I just kind of laid down next to it, fumbled around with my regulator, tried to put it on, and it wouldn't work.
Okay.
So without thinking too much about it, I don't know why, to this day, why I did it, but I put that extra 15 pounds in my pack and started moving.
Yeah.
And, it's a death zone. And eventually got to where Pasong was supposed to be. It's this area called the balcony. It's at 27,500 feet. He wasn't there. And I remember just being happy because this is the halfway point to getting down to high camp.
Which is where people are. This is the first place that was running with someone else.
Yeah,
okay.
There's a few people down there with the tents and everything. So I start heading down, and within 10, 15 yards, my mask just sucks into my face. So I ran out of oxygen. And I remember at that moment just gripping my mask off and just taking these deep breaths of the thin air, just suffocating, and just praying at that moment. At that moment, I'd been climbing for 33 hours from the day prior to that point, in the death zone, hardest climbing you can really do. Mm-hmm. And, I just prayed. I just simply surrendered right there. Just said, God, I can't do this alone. Please help. And at that moment, I just really witnessed a miracle. I felt this energy come over me. It was like I was lifted to my feet, and without thinking too much about it, I fumbled around, grabbed the other oxygen bottle and the regulator, tried it, and I got a positive flow. And I remember just putting the mask back on my face and just taking 5 deep breaths, and it was like fire entering my veins. It was like this life just re-entering.
Okay, I was going to ask, I'm glad you said life re-entering, because I'm like, does that hurt? If that's painful because you were without oxygen for a little, or without much oxygen for a little bit, was it like a shock? Like if you don't eat for a few days and then all of a sudden have a cheeseburger and your body's like, what are you doing? Was it like that, or was it just the metaphorical?
No, it physically hurt.
Okay, so both life and also pain. Okay.
Yeah, it was like a joyful pain.
Okay.
And I just, without, thinking too much about it, I had this new life. I knew I had to get down. I was very focused. I had to get down. I wasn't going to be another statistic. If I was going to, die trying as hard as I could.
Yeah.
Put all my stuff back, started fumbling down the mountain as fast as I could, which is super slow, and got into the last quarter mile, and just seeing these rocks and kind of tripping over these, ice and rocks, getting in there, just kind of a wreck. And out of nowhere, Pasong just hugs me. So, never saw him come. He's like, Brian, you alive? And, I'm so sorry I leave you, all this stuff. I'm like, no, don't worry, dude. We're good. And he helped me back to the tent. And I basically just collapsed in there and slept for 15 hours straight. My eyes were completely glued shut. I had 2 black eyes, lost 20 pounds in that amount of time.
Wait, that's 30 hours you lost 28 pounds? You're losing a pound an hour?
Yeah.
So what is that? Is that water? I mean, I guess if we're
It's muscle.
You can lose muscle that fast?
Yes. Yeah, it's pretty common. It's with the lack of air, your body is working so hard.
Wow.
Yeah. So just completely wrecked and just, still had to get down. I'm still at 26,000 feet. So the next day, got down, low-say face. Pasong was with me. Almost stepped in a crevasse down at the base of it, and helped me over. Got into Camp 2, where I finally was able to call my wife. I borrowed a sat phone, and worst call ever. I own that.
Yeah.
Basically, I called, and I'm in tears and alive, joyful, but just it was a lot. Just it was all coming out, and just told her, I'm like, I soloed the summit. I'm blind, and then it cut out. So that's all
at least she heard your voice, I guess.
Yeah, but now she's like, are you permanently blind? Like, she had no idea.
Well, you probably didn't know either.
And so the next day I got to base camp, where I got to actually talk to her for about an hour. And then I had to do the trek out, just stumbling out for the 38 miles. Was on a plane back to Seattle. So, 5 more days from base camp on, I was home and with my family. So it was just like a major whirlwind. Fox News is in my house, filming me and on stage.
You could see him at least, right?
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, it was so amazing just to be back and just be with them. And I just kind of just want to be isolated from the world, which wasn't happening, but I just wanted to be with my family and just be so grateful to be alive.
Okay, so I have a few questions. One of them with the weight loss. I've never heard of that before. So when you look like a thin guy, I can only see your head and shoulders, but obviously you're fit if you're doing these things. Do you bulk up then beforehand? Like kind of put on some extra so that planning to potentially lose maybe a quarter of your body weight? Or, it would have been a quarter of mine. Like a fifth of yours or so, or a sixth of it?
No, I mean, I've been on a few mountains where I've lost quite a bit of weight, and when you're at altitude and you're working that hard, you can't eat enough to maintain as much as you're losing.
Well, because you can't carry that much either, right? So
the other thing is, at altitude, you're not hungry. You have to force food down. You have acute mountain sickness a lot of times, which is the different issues that can occur from not having enough air and just being exerting your energy at that level. You feel nauseous. A lot of people can't even climb because they're throwing up. One of my best friends, he loves climbing. He's a great climber. Once he gets above 11,000 feet, he's just a wreck, and it's just unfortunate because another person has no issues and they're up there. So it's by person. But as far as me bulking up, I'm 42 plus years old, and I just don't bulk up. I've tried. I think it's just my metabolism is still really high, and it's just not who I am. So no, I don't prepare for that. It's just something that I know I can recover from.
Okay. Do some people? Is that something?
I think some people either do, or they use it as an excuse of not preparing enough. I've seen both approaches. So have you been training for this? No, I'm bulking up. Okay.
Do what you got to do, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay, and then this one may be completely ignorant, but obviously I'm in Silicon Valley. I'm used to being connected to everything at all times via my smartphone. Obviously, you're probably not getting service at the top of Everest. And you said when you called your wife, you had a satellite phone. Is there no way you could have gotten a helicopter to come and get you? Is that not possible up there? Or is that just expensive? No. Or what is the story with that?
Yeah, so helicopters, they're not like airplanes with wings. They have rotors. So I flew in helicopters for 6 years, maybe. The rotors have to have thicker air for something to bite down on to be able to hover.
Okay.
And the rescues on Everest, they really just get as high as Camp 2, which is 21,000 feet, maybe at 22. And they'll have to fly maybe, higher than that to 23, but it's it's really, really sketchy. You can't have a lot of weight in them. As far as getting to the summit, there is some record where they landed a helicopter up there.
Okay.
But I think it was, I don't know if it's valid or not. I can assume maybe it is, but it was a one-time thing, and you would not be pulling people off. There's really no rescues up higher. I mean, it's a huge effort, and it's if there's, I shouldn't say there are no rescues, because it's a situational type of thing.
Right.
But it's not going to happen just because someone's snowblind or whatever else. You got to get down further. It's not worth the risk of a helicopter and others risking their lives to go higher. When you climb Everest or some of these higher peaks, you know what you're getting into. And above there, you're pretty much on your own.
Okay. Wow. So it's just like good luck, basically.
Yeah.
Okay. So you mentioned that, at one point, and I'm sure probably more than one point during this blind descent, that you prayed and then you felt a miracle. Were you, I guess you didn't directly say it tied to religion. Are you religious? Were you before? Did this change your views in any way?
I've been a Christian for a long part of my life.
Okay.
And my wife's a Christian counselor, so yeah, nothing new there. So faith is very important to me.
Right.
I don't think, and maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think a lot of people have a real tangible experience in their life. So they're really banking on faith, which can be a difficult thing. Believing in something that you don't see, touch, all that stuff. I think a lot of people do have miracles in their life, and they chalk it up to different things.
Sure.
I'm not one to question or judge or anything. That's every person is on a journey, and that's their personal thing. For me, I had a very tangible experience, very cause and effect. I think I was in a position where, and I have been my whole life, where I try to do things on my own. I was in a position where I could not do it on my own. I reached out, and I had a miracle. I felt energy and life, and I can't explain it other than I surrendered at that moment, and now I'm here.
That's amazing. And I'm glad you're here, and thank you for sharing that, because it has to be difficult to remember all of that pain and fear.
Yeah. It's often, and when I got back, and I was thinking about this morning, a lot of people have experiences, or they say something happened in their life, and not a day goes by where I don't think about it, or that type of thing. But I don't know if that's always true. It might be a nice thing to say. This is something I can promise. I've never had one day since that I haven't thought about it, or it hasn't influenced what I do during the day because of it. And I have a ton of media and do talks and everything else. So, I'm forced into it. When I first got back, it was really difficult. And it still is when I visit certain aspects of it. It's very emotional. Like I have a movie series that I filmed that'll be coming out, in the next few months, I think. And it was just very, very emotional, being in studio. And then we actually helicoptered up to the highest peak in British Columbia and did a reenactment. And it was very difficult. But especially when I first came back, I was definitely seeing, feeling different areas of PTSD and just reliving it and behaving weird or getting emotional when it's like, why is this happening? And then fortunately my wife is a counselor, and we talk often, and she's definitely makes me a better person, and helps me cope.
Has it brought you closer, do you think, to your wife, your family?
I think we've always been close. We've been together for 20 plus years, but yeah, it's definitely, when you have something like this, it's definitely, we both have been on stage talking together, and just how we both coped through this, and just how she got through it, and having the 2 kids at home, young kids at that time. That's a story in itself. Yeah. She's definitely a strong individual. She lost her father, at a young age when we first met, back in '95. So the last thing I wanted to do was to abandon her as well, or my kids. So, I just found the strength, got through, and yeah, we've been able to definitely, I think, grow closer because of it.
And
Right now, we're doing a marriage series, an 8-week series on marriage called Climbing the Everest of Marriage. So it's like couples, the Everest experience, and kind of the analogy of climbing together to the top of the mountain, as far as marriage. And then she, brings in the actual good content. Mine's the entertaining content. Hers is the actual good, like, clinical.
I'm sure they're both equally valuable. You can't sell yourself short that yours isn't good. It just hers might be a little bit more informative.
Okay.
That's awesome. So I was going to ask, and it seems almost silly to even be thinking about that now after you shared like the really dramatic, impactful part, but I was wondering about the practicality of it. Like you said, she was, by herself with her kids, and since that wasn't the only or first, out of the country long period of time, mountaineering you've done, I imagine that that's relatively often. And then I'm always interested too when I talk to people who are doing mission trips far away, or, things of that nature, just how it works with like your job. So could you talk a little bit about that, like how you're able to just leave for a couple months and the impact it has on your family life and your career outside of the extreme mountaineering?
Yeah, no, it's tough. I mean, we can cover a lot just in this little session here, but I think a lot of it comes down to the person, how we're wired.
Sure.
There's I don't know what we're up to, 7+ billion people on this earth, and 100 billion that have ever existed, and there's only been a few thousand that have actually climbed Everest, for instance.
Yeah.
So you got to imagine the mass majority will not get it. They're wired completely different. It's insane. So
and on that note, your wife knew what she was getting into because you're that type of person.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because we met when I was in the Navy. I was jumping out of helicopters, and I did leave. I did 2 tours in the Gulf, so gone for 6 months at a time. So
thank you for your service, by the way.
Oh, thanks. So yeah, she knew it. It doesn't necessarily mean she loves it, that part of me, but she knows, and this is what's so amazing about her. And so many people would look at her and be like, "Why the heck would you ever I would never let my husband," those comments. But she knows who I am. Sure. And I think a part of a healthy relationship is it's a balance, but it's really, understanding and respecting who we are, how we're wired, how our different personalities, she and I could not be more opposite. And we know that. And, in the early stages, we battled through that. And now we've come to realize this is who we are. We were attracted to each other initially because we were so opposite, and now those things annoy the heck out of each other, so, but you have to realize that and then work together, and we've grown so close because of that, and we're more aware, and we have to constantly remind each other that, oh yeah, I said this, your personality, you would hear it a certain way, it's almost like speaking 2 different languages. So having that respect, and she does things that I would think is crazy, like scrapbooking or something. Right, it'd be a nightmare for me to like that, but okay, you want to do that? You want to go away for the weekend?
You do that? You're crazy.
So you can get a paper cut. But yeah, so that's that piece, just respecting each other and understanding we're wired differently, and by allowing me to go do this, it's made me, maybe it's enhanced who I am. I've had these life experiences. I have no regrets, at the end of my life. Like I've done a lot of stuff. I fulfilled a lot, and that's great. That's living. That's me. Yeah. And she's been a part of that, being able to come to a lot of these continents and actually even climb a little bit. She's definitely scared of heights, but climb a little bit to certain areas and do some of these, orphanage visits. Mm-hmm. So, and having the family involved too, the kids. So they've had experiences like, even my wife and daughter a couple of years ago went to Swaziland, so South Africa, and did a mission trip down there where they were in a village teaching like business skills to the locals. And so just great experiences all around. But as far as your question on the logistics, it's definitely, it takes a ton of planning. You know,
Right.
a lot of climbers out there, they may just give up their job or whatever. You know, it becomes more of an obsession.
Do you get sponsorships then?
Yeah. So some of them can be very expensive, like Antarctica, but it's really, it's going out there and having the courage to ask for money.
Right.
And, you know, take 1,000 no's for one yes. But having, you know, a few sponsorships out there has definitely helped fund some of that, and, you know, help with speaking engagements and, you know, book sales, all that. But as far as like work, like for Everest, it was 2 months. So I've worked in high tech industry for most of my career since I got out of the Navy. I actually took 2 months of unpaid leave.
Okay.
But I also brought lots of the company with me. They helped sponsor it, and I was able to showcase their technology
Okay.
on the mountain.
Very cool. And then, of course, when you got back, how long was it before you were able to get back to work, since you were still unable to see and dealing with media and I'm sure gaining weight again to get back to healthy?
It was pretty right away because with my jobs, I work from home most of the time.
Okay.
Like I'm a pre-sales engineer, so I'll cover certain accounts. So I can do a lot of phone calls and, you know, take people to lunch and all that stuff. So I couldn't really drive I wasn't supposed to drive for
oh boy.
a month. And so I worked from home a lot, but, you know, I got rides into the office some days.
Okay. So with that and getting your sight back, did you know that you would, like, when did you find out that you would be able to see again?
The doctors said that snow blindness is not permanent.
Okay.
My left eye definitely was damaged quite a bit more than my right. Like it's funny because you don't notice at the time, but like the picture that's on the cover of my book, Blind Descent, it's it's the summit pic, like the selfie, or it's up there somewhere. But you can tell my left eye is just like, it was probably already blind. I don't think I probably realized up there until my right eye went. But my left eye probably was affected way earlier. But yeah, the doctor said that it wasn't permanent, but even now, you know, they can tell. Actually, tomorrow I'm actually getting LASIK or for astigmatism and just getting old. But, you know, they say, no, it's just getting old. It's not because of Everest. I'm like, okay. Either way, we can't, you know, can't see the distance very good.
When you were able to see again, what was that like? Was it overwhelming? Were you excited? What was the first thing you saw?
It was gradual.
Okay.
So it wasn't like, oh, I can see, you know, type of thing. It was gradual. So it was more of the blurriness was wearing off.
Okay.
So yeah, because my right eye came back, you know, more, you know, like quicker in a few days. My left eye was completely gone for about a month and a half. So it was just really blurry for a long time. Like I remember in the airport, I flew from Kathmandu to Bangkok, and I was stuck there for a day before I could fly to Taipei and home.
Sure.
And I remember just going through the airport and all the bright fluorescent lights. I was just like bumping into people, and it was just like, oh, sorry, and sorry, just, you know, I felt like everyone was staring at me too, because I just had black eyes, and I looked like I just got beat up.
Right, which you sort of did. Just not by a person.
Just by a mountain.
Right. Okay, so then when you're scared, would you say it was your faith that got you through? Is that the advice you'd give to someone who's doing something else that's scary? Or how would you tell other people to push past fear?
Yeah, so I chalk it up to faith and focus.
Okay.
I think you have to be really, really focused and in the moment. I get a lot of people say that I'm fearless, and I don't agree. I have so much fear. You know, as I get older and the kids and everything else, you know, there's just more responsibility. There's more fear. I think it's being fearless in the moment. And I think to do that a lot of times, releasing it. So the faith aspect, I think when you try to hold things in yourself, you're only as good as you are. And if, the conditions aren't, dictating very well, 33 hours on the mountain, blind, completely wrecked, you're probably not too good at saving yourself. So releasing that is very powerful, and just focusing. And what's ironic is I couldn't focus at all, literally.
Yeah.
But I knew it was one step in front of the other, and just feeling the rope, feeling those anchor points, clipping in and out, making sure I wasn't exposed off rope, because if I slipped and fell, it's game over.
Sure. I can't even imagine. Do you know what your purpose is? And if so, like, what is it? And then also, did having a near-death experience change that or sharpen the focus on that at all for you?
Yeah. So, prior to this, you asked about my faith. I've been a Christian for many years, but I haven't been like outward. And for me, with my personality, I'm a move forward type of guy, goal oriented.
Yeah.
What's next type of thing.
Sure.
I don't like living in the past.
Yeah.
This has been a pivotal point where I have to talk about it often and relive it often, and that's in the past.
Sure.
So that's been different for me, but I think that my purpose has been to reach a lot of people. It's very, very humbling. There's 200 plus bodies still on Everest. Why am I alive? So going through that survivor's guilt, but just having the responses that I've had, when I've given talks, or people see me on social media or whatever, and they're just motivated, trying to get through the day with whatever they are experiencing. Yeah, and it's very humbling, because I'm just me. I'm as flawed as anyone. Mm-hmm. I just had this experience, and through faith and focus, was able to get out of it. Mm-hmm. It's helped a lot of people. So I think that's my purpose.
That's awesome. So I know you mentioned that you have written at least one book. If you want to tell me a little bit about that, and then if there are any other books that you would like to recommend to our listeners or viewers that you've either enjoyed or have impacted your life, or, even if it's just something funny, a good way to pass the time, what would you recommended reading?
Yeah. So my book is Blind Descent. And it really captures this story in detail, and it also captures a lot of my military experience and how that ties into it. Okay. And just the way I think, has my wife in there, has the song, my Sherpa. So yeah, that was by Tyndale House Publishers. That was very, very humbling. There's definitely a push for my agents to make it into a movie, so that could happen, but if you just Google me, there's been plenty of reenactments, and I've been in the media quite a bit. So again, just very, very humbling. I guess everyone likes a survival story.
Right. I'll definitely include, at least some of that in the show notes as well for people to check out.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
And as far as other books, I think, I don't know, I've read a lot of military books, a lot of climbing books.
Yeah.
And those are very enjoyable to me. One that's pretty powerful is Fearless, and it's about Adam Brown, the Navy SEAL. And to me, it's well written. It's a great book, but it also has my friend Kevin Houston in it, who is with SEAL Team 6, who was killed shortly after I got back. So it was just not just a powerful book, but it's very personal to me as well. Just seeing him in there, and just what's crazy is I don't know where he was faith-wise, but he actually accepted Jesus as his Savior on pretty much the very same moment that I was having my miracle on Everest.
Wow.
May 15th, 2011. So I read that in the book, and it's not in like an overly faithful book. It's just these different pockets, these elements in there. I was just floored.
I got goosebumps.
Crazy how that works. And then his helicopter was shot down, and all the SEALs and service people were killed a few months later. So just in the nick of time, I guess.
Yeah.
And then of course I'm I'm a Christian, so I wake up early each morning and read the Bible and study, because there's so much that just helps, give me direction in life. And I really like Malcolm Gladwell's Blink. Malcolm Gladwell has a lot of good books. The way he writes is just really interesting, because he has one point and he'll have a whole book surrounding it.
From different angles. Yeah, I love it.
So much detail, but Blink's interesting because it's about the adaptive unconscious. And in the military, we trained so hard so that we didn't have to think when the opportunity came to save a life or whatever we had to do, whatever mission. And he really talks about that, about how police and firemen and military and different people, when, some people are panicking, earthquake, everyone stops and there's an earthquake happening, they're processing it. Other people are saving lives. Yeah. So I love how he brought it all together.
Absolutely. I agree. I really enjoyed that book as well. So if people want to check out your Everest of Marriage, or your, watch to see if you have a movie coming out, or just keep track of what you're doing online, where can they find you? Social media. I know I found you on Twitter, or you found me, but then I asked you to be on the podcast.
Yes. Yeah. Twitter. I'm on every flavor of social media, and it's all, my handle's Brian C. Dickinson, and then my website's briandickinson.net. And then, I don't know, just Google me. I'm out there.
Okay. Yeah. And I'll, again, put that in the show notes as well. Okay. One of my favorite questions, and I imagine having a near-death experience would put an interesting spin on this. And I also was wondering, too, you said in 2008 you started the climb, or the 7 summits. Had you been climbing long before then? Was that a forever thing? I think that's kind of common to many people in the Pacific Northwest, although not to your extremes.
Yeah. So, exactly. You can define climbing a lot of different ways. And a lot of times you'll see in the news, experienced climber dies. And, what does experienced climber actually mean? Could be rock climbing, could be mountaineering. Who knows what their portfolio really looks like. Mm-hmm. I did grow up in Southern Oregon, so I used to hike a lot. I wouldn't say it was glacial, on glacier climbing or anything technical. So I wouldn't say I've done it my whole life. I think more than anything, I've just been adventurous my whole life. Okay. Leading up to when I was going to do the 7 summits, I was doing more of the technical stuff. Yeah. But, really ramped it up as far as getting technically trained and just kind of, filling in the gaps that I was definitely missing. And honestly, a lot of those gaps, you want the technical stuff, but it's just experience. And I just was getting out a lot, and there's definitely no shortage where I live. So,
Very cool. So then what I was going to ask on that note is, if 8-year-old Brian could look in a crystal ball and see, I think you said you're 42, but see 42-year-old Brian, or Brian today, and see all of the different things that you've done in those years on a scale of 1 to 11, how excited would little Brian be to be here right now?
I think little Brian, I think about little Brian often, actually. I think he would be, growing up in a small town in Southern Oregon, small town, we had 69 students in our graduating class.
Wow.
He would be probably shocked. Just, he'd be pretty proud of how far Big Brian's made it. And if he looked at his wife and kids, he would probably not want to know anymore, because he wouldn't want to wreck, his future. Anything he did is just, okay, whatever you've done, no matter how many obstacles you had to overcome and how hard it was in certain ages and times, you're at a good place at 42, and hopefully just continue learning and, becoming a better person.
That's awesome. So I know you said you're still working on Denali, so I'm guessing that's good, that you're going to try to make that part of your future. What else do you foresee where you're headed, if you have any idea?
So it's I'm glad that I've done the climbs that I've done at the ages that I did, or I should say at my kids' ages when they were younger, because now they're 10 and 13, and they really love adventures. My
Yeah.
son, who's 10, I mean, he's got his own ice axe and harness and everything, and just the two of us have been cruising out and doing stuff. And he looks forward to it. He's really enjoying that.
Yeah.
So I think I'm at this point in time where I can turn it closer to my family and involve them in, nothing overly extreme. Like they all want to go to Everest Base Camp, so that's definitely something that we want to do together.
Okay.
And meet Pasang and probably have him do the trek with us. So yeah, I would say call it short term, but in the next 10 years, while they're still in the house, not even 10 years, but, do as much as we can as a family and just continue traveling and do our adventures. I mean, there's plenty of times throughout the year that I'm still bringing people up Mount Rainier and different peaks, and maybe I'll end up on Denali again. But just traveling and, just making sure that they have unique experiences that help them grow and round out as individuals as they become adults.
I adore your response for a couple of reasons, and one of them was because I imagine, you said you've always been into adventure, obviously like a bit of a thrill seeker with the things you've done in your past, and where they've taken you so far, I can't imagine what you could do to top them. So I guess being able to vicariously feel the adrenaline of your children will still kind of give you those rushes, but just in a different way that's a lot safer for you.
Yeah, I'm definitely not calling it. It's funny because a lot of people that don't do mountaineering think it's a thrill-seeking rush, but because there's not enough air up there and it's so slow and there's so much downtime, it's like the last thing you ever feel is a rush. It's just it's so slow and but yeah, I mean it's doing things safe and not. I definitely don't want to live through my kids. I want them to have their own experiences.
Yeah.
But it's good to create those opportunities.
Right.
And if it's a direction they want to go, which right now they certainly enjoy it. We snowboard all the time and that type of stuff. But it's being smart, not putting them at risk either. But also not taking. It's a balance because you could take the safe route out and be behind an Xbox all day or something. But that's not our thing. Like, let's get outdoors, enjoy the world. Do our little part to make it a better place and to make ourselves better.
Yeah, that's awesome. Do you have any final advice that you would like to give really on anything to our listeners or viewers?
Yeah. I think the listeners are probably just a huge range, just like you walk down, the street, you're just going to get a range of people. So what I say doesn't always apply directly, but I know each individual struggles with something. If they're not today, they will tomorrow. It's just human nature. And I think it's figuring out, how to have that faith and focus to get through whatever you're going through, because, eventually in the moment, it's very difficult, but over time, or when you look back on stuff, it's like, how did I get through that? And it's just figuring that out, having some repeatable process, and again, just being fearless in the moment. Don't live a fearful or fearless life, but be fearless in that moment. Figure out what it is. What is that one thing to get you through?
Thank you so much for that, and thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing your experience and reliving it with us. I really appreciate it, and I'm really excited to see where things go for you.
Oh, thanks so much. I appreciate it.
It's so fascinating to speak with somebody whose experiences I can barely even compare to anything close to what they've been through. And it almost feels like the things that I could even kind of get close to that level are just so far away that it was almost silly. But I think he's right in that you can take parts of his story and really apply it to, any parts of your life. It doesn't have to be real physical mountains, but the mountains that we go through with just difficulties mentally or in friendships, relationships, or emotionally. So I hope that you feel that you learned something. I hope that you feel inspired. I think his story is fantastic. And like I said, similar to Coach Cook's last week. If you haven't listened to that, please go back and do so. But one of his tips was that you just have to keep moving and not let an obstacle stop you. And that was definitely the case for Brian, because otherwise he would have been one of those 200 bodies that are still on that mountain. If his story sounds interesting to you and you would like to read about it in greater detail, he was generous enough to offer a giveaway of one of his books, Blind Descent. So if you're interested in checking that out, please go to the show notes, www.mandiem.com/episode, and then 57. That's where you can enter to win a copy of his book. Please share this with anyone that you think would find this inspiring or motivating or even just entertaining, because what a crazy story. Also at the show notes, you can check out some pictures and some videos of reenactments and different things to add a little more color to Brian's incredible story. So please make sure you do that. And in addition, make sure that you subscribe so that you can get the future episodes, which include but aren't limited to a Fearless Fridays episode this Friday, where we will have a wonderful challenge from Brian to help you move closer to your goals and further outside of your comfort zone as usual. Thank you so much for listening. If you or someone you know would be a perfect guest and have done some bold moves, please head to mandiem.com, mandiem.com/guest, as in be our guest, and fill out the form so that I have all of your information, and I will potentially be in touch with you to schedule an interview. I'm always on the lookout for inspiring bold people who have done pretty cool things so that I can learn from them, and share that with my listeners. All right, as always, be bold and have a sparkly day. Bye-bye.